What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone is doing well. Today we got some special video. Today we are going to be watching the Senate live. Okay, as I mentioned in other videos, I like to watch the Senate live. It's one thing to see them outside of work, the senators outside of work, and giving speeches about what's going on. Then there's another thing, actually seeing them at work, explaining how they feel about this, what's going on. All right, the tone in their voices. I'm looking forward to hearing from the Senate Majority Leader and the Minority Leader. I can't wait to hear from them. It's starting right now. All right, this is a live broadcast. I thought I'd put it on YouTube. If you're new to my channel, subscribe because I'll be doing more of these, and I would love to hear your opinion. So if you're watching this video afterwards, comment down below. If you made the live stream, comment. I would love to see, and I can walk you in if this is your first time watching this. So basically, what's going to happen is they're going to do a prayer. I think they say the Pledge of Allegiance, if I can recall, a prayer, and then they start the session. Typically, they'll bring in what's the major issue at hand, and then you'll have the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch Cummings, talking about what he wants to talk about. So I think today is going to be a really special day because I think he's finally going to start talking about the second stimulus bill. So we're going to be watching it live. And yeah, I would love to hear from you guys. So make sure you comment down below because we all want to know what's going on. So basically, whatever they're going to talk about today will determine on what we should be expecting coming in the next coming days. Hopefully, we can get some form of good news by the end of this week. Maybe they've been working when they were on their break behind the scenes. It was said they were talking about the stimulus package yesterday. Let's see what's the consensus is. And as for the president, what he actually wants. Okay, so it's interesting to see. I just want to give everybody a shout out. Thanks for showing up. For those who are here, we'll be watching live what the Senate. This is going to be a live video, all right? So live feed is starting. I'll just be here with you once it starts. We'll just sit here and watch what the senators got to say. The opening talks. All right, so it's gonna. Oh, here we go. Here we go, guys. Let me know if you can hear everything. Okay. Good morning, guys. Let me know if you can hear everything. All right, guys. Okay, here we go. We're already starting.
is implemented fully and properly. So I urge the administration to be expeditious in addressing any enforcement issues or non-compliance from our trading partners under the dispute settlement mechanism. I also encourage close consultation between Congress and the administration so that we may continue to be successful in the U.S.-Mexico-Canadian agreement implementation efforts, allowing Americans to reap the benefits of this agreement. Now, I raised questions with the administration, but I have no doubt that they're going to be on top of it. First year in office, Trump started negotiations. They were successful negotiations. NAFTA is now gone. Now, USMCA is going into effect. Trump delivered on his campaign promise. I have no doubt that he will see that the U.S.-Mexico-Canadian agreement is properly implemented. I yield the floor.
Clerk will call the roll. Mr. Alexander.
All right, guys. So now we're just waiting for Mitch to show up to talk about what's going on. This is basically what happens every day. Pretty much when they have their session, you'll have Mitch come out. You notice they didn't talk about the stimulus bill. This is like after 2 weeks of being on break, this is the first thing they talk about. So now let's see if Mitch shows up and he brings up the issue with the stimulus bill. If he does not bring anything up with the stimulus bill or unemployment, that is a huge issue. That just lets you know what the Senate is thinking about moving forward. So we just have to wait. These things can last. These sessions can last maybe, wow, man, maybe I'm saying maybe 10 hours. Between breaks, they take a break at 12 o'clock. And yeah, it could last a while. But the main thing is to hear from Senate Majority Leader Mitch and Minority Leader Chuck. So normally Chuck is always on the ball when it comes to talking about the stimulus. Oh, here we go. Okay, we can't hear him talk for some reason, but he is talking. Like they turned his mic off, literally. Are you serious? You can see in the captions below he's talking, but this is the first time I've seen this. There we go.
Majority Leader.
Asking something further proceed, but I think we're on call to discuss with.
Without objection.
Madam President, our nation stands at a crucial midway point in our battle against this terrible virus. The heroism of healthcare professionals, essential workers, and families from coast to coast got our nation through a springtime like no other. Community across America put normal life on pause to buy breathing room for our medical system. We essentially had to winterize the world's
world's largest economy for weeks on end and spare our people as much of the resulting pain as possible. The task was historic, and so was the Senate's response. We wrote and passed the CARES Act, the largest rescue package in American history. Our legislation helped pull both our health system and our economy back from the brink. Tens of millions of jobs were saved. The hallways of our hospitals did not become Italy. The Senate's leadership helped the nation endure the first phase of this, but this crisis is far from over. The virus that has claimed 140,000 American lives has not gone anywhere. As some places step back toward normalcy, infections are climbing again in hotspots across our country. The start of our economic recovery has been sharp and impressive. But in absolute terms, we still have just begun to pick up the pieces. Our progress so far has been encouraging, but it remains fragile and far from sufficient. I would argue that our country's job now is even more complex than it was back in March. Now, as then, we need to keep our health system robust. But now, instead of locking down the country to do it, we want to stand up a society that functions somewhat more normally at the same time. The American people cannot completely stop building their lives until a vaccine is available. The United States of America was not built for a defensive crouch. We need to stand up an educational system and an economy that works for workers and families in the meantime. We need to find the right sort of middle ground that is smart and safe, but also more sustainable. So another historic set of challenges, Madam President, and another opportunity for the United States Senate to deliver. For weeks now, I have made it clear that further legislation out of the Senate will be a serious response to the crisis. We won't be wasting the American people's time like the House Democrats with their multi-trillion-dollar proposal to hike taxes on small businesses, cut taxes for blue state millionaires, and send diversity detectives into the cannabis industry. I've said we will start with the facts and develop real, targeted solutions on the subjects that matter most to American families. Well, Madam President, it turns out that means three things: kids, jobs, and healthcare. Kids, jobs, and healthcare. Surveys show the American people's top priorities for reopening are childcare and K through 12 schools. This country wants its kids back in the classroom this fall, learning, exploring, making friends. Their educations depend on it. In some cases, their safety depends on it. And so do the livelihoods of working parents. The American Academy of Pediatrics stated unambiguously that our goal must be in-person instruction. But of course, parents, teachers, and doctors all agree that it has to be as safe as possible. That's where the Senate comes in. And this majority is preparing legislation that will send $105 billion so that educators have the resources they need to safely reopen. That is more money than the House Democrats set aside for a similar fund, by the way. And that's in addition to support for child care needs. It's amazing how you can find room to find serious priorities when you take the capacity on the far left age range. Second, the economic slowdown that has hurt millions and millions of Americans. Before this crisis, we had never had 7 million Americans receiving unemployment at the same time. Today, we have 17 million. More than 1 million people have filed new unemployment claims every single week for more than 4 months now. The American job market needs another shot of adrenaline. Senate Republicans are laser focused on getting American workers their jobs back Our bill takes several specific incentives to hire and retain workers and turn the dials on those policies way up. The legislation will help reimburse for safe workplaces so that Main Street can afford the PPE, testing, cleaning, or remodeling to protect workers and entice customers. The ingenuity and spirit of America's small business is impossible to overstate, but they still face a tough road. With the majority of businesses expected to exhaust their initial Paycheck Protection funding this summer, we'll also be proposing a targeted second round of the PPP with a special eye toward hard-hit businesses. And speaking of building on what worked in the CARES Act, we want another round of direct payments to help American families keep driving our national comeback. Helping to create more American jobs is an urgent moral priority. And these are just some of the policies we're discussing that will help that happen. In addition to kids and jobs, our third major focus is healthcare. The reason is obvious. If we lose control of the virus, or if research stalls, then everything else will be window dressing. Our proposal will dedicate even more resources to the fastest race for a new vaccine in human history, along with diagnostics and treatments. Our bill will also protect seniors from a potential spike in premiums, and the federal government will continue to support hospitals, providers, and testing. These are just some of the elements that Senate Republicans are discussing among ourselves and with the administration. But there's one more central proposal that ties kids, jobs, and healthcare all together. As I've said for months, the next recovery package will include strong legal protections for the healthcare workers who save strangers' lives and the schools, colleges, charities, and businesses that want to reopen. The American people will not see their historic recovery gobbled up by trial lawyers who are itching to follow the pandemic with a second epidemic of frivolous lawsuits. Gross negligence will still be actionable, but we're creating a safe harbor for institutions that make good faith efforts to follow the guidelines available to them. Doctors and nurses clearly deserve this protection, and school districts, universities, nonprofits, and small businesses will need it as well if we want any genuine reopening at all. The legislation that I've begun to sketch out is neither another CARES Act to float the entire economy, nor a typical stimulus bill for a nation that's ready to get back to normal. Our country is in a complex middle ground between those two things. We can't go back to April, and we can't snap our fingers and finish the vaccine overnight. We need to carve out a new normal. So Senate Republicans are continuing to discuss these and other ideas among our conference and with the administration. The majority will be laying down another historic proposal very soon. But here in the Senate, an outcome will require bipartisan discussions. I do not believe there will be anything in our bill that our Democratic colleagues should not happily support. But we will stand ready and eager to work together and produce a bipartisan outcome. As I said yesterday, in March, the Senate gave an historic master class in how to pass major bipartisan legislation. The CARES Act, the largest rescue package ever, was drafted by Republicans, promptly negotiated across the aisle with Democrats, and then passed urgently without a single dissenting vote. But last month in June, we recorded a master class in how not to make a law. Instead of amending Senator Tim Scott's Justice Act, our Democratic colleagues flat out blocked it. They filibustered the issue of police reform altogether. Well, for the sake of America's kids, jobs, and healthcare, Madam President, let's hope our Democratic friends bring their bipartisan urgency and good faith to the process and leave the partisan poses behind. The Senate has led every step of this crisis. We need to rise to the task one more time.
Under the previous order, the leadership time is reserved. Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration of S4049, which the clerk will report.
Power number 483, S4049, an original bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2021 for military activities of the Department of Defense and so forth for other purposes.
All right, guys, so this is good news. You heard it. If you've been watching, you heard it. The Senate wants another round of direct payments, okay? So this is what the Senate wants, and also that's what the House wants. So it's pretty much something you could just say yes. Unless something drastic happens in the world, looks like we're gonna get another direct payment. Or what it would look like, is it gonna be like a recurring payment until we're out of this whole pandemic, or is it going to be a larger one, a smaller one that's yet to talk about? But one thing we want to hear from is from Chuck, minority Senate leader. I don't know if he's going to talk today, but he normally talks right after Mitch. So let's see. If you are watching this video after its recording, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss this. I'm gonna do this tomorrow as well. We're just gonna just keep paying attention to what they're doing. Because like I said, it's better to watch them when they're at work instead of after work. You want to know exactly what they're talking about. Catch them at work, because this is where they're going to be voting the bill. You want to know how they feel. And so finally, Mitch.
Madam President.
Here we go. There, we got Chuck.
No. Madam President, our country faces the greatest health threat in 100 years, the greatest economic crisis in 70 years. But here in the Republican-led Senate, you'd hardly know. Over the past several months, even as COVID-19 surged through the country once again, even as our states hit new records of infections and hospitalizations, the Republican majority in the Senate dithered and delayed on the next phase of major emergency relief. In April, in May, in June, Democrats tried to jolt the Senate into action. But almost every time we tried to pass much needed legislation by average Americans, our Republican colleagues objected. Unemployment claims reached 50 million. The number of cases topped 3.8 million as the virus resurged over the past several weeks. More than 140,000 Americans have died. Still, Senate Republicans wanted to, in the words of their leader, quote, hit the pause button and, quote, assess the conditions in the country before providing any more relief. The country was burning. Senate Republicans, led by Leader McConnell, said, let's wait a little longer and see how this goes. Like President Trump, they were hoping it would go away, ignoring all of the scientific evidence, but paying obeisance to the hard right, which didn't want to spend money no matter what the cost to America. Now, it seems our Republican friends have finally found the motivation to do another emergency relief bill. Even they, with their heads still half in the sand, have to see the crisis the country is in. But instead of working with Democrats in either the Senate or the House, Leader McConnell has decided to write the bill behind the closed doors of his office. The same partisan, one-side-only process that has failed time and time again to produce successful legislation in the Senate. McConnell talked about how the Senate led in the last three bills. I'd add a word to that. It was Senate Democrats that led. Republicans put a small, stingy, corporate-oriented proposal before the Senate. We said no, and they were forced to add provisions friendly to workers and average American families. That's what happened. History knows that. Yesterday, Leader McConnell once again called for the same spirit of bipartisanship that helped us pass the CARES Act. Well, Leader McConnell, writing a bill in office without any input from Democrats, dropping it on the floor, and demanding that Democrats support it is no one's idea of bipartisanship. You can't fool the American people with these facile words that just don't ring true. Even worse, the Republican proposal appears destined to fall drastically short of what's required. From all indications, The bill will prioritize corporate special interests over workers and Main Street businesses. It won't provide hazard pay for essential workers. It won't provide new funding to state, local, and tribal governments, or enough investments in communities of color that have been ravaged by the virus. Enhanced unemployment benefits will expire at the end of the month. According to reports, the Republican bill will not do nearly enough to aid the 20 to 30 million Americans currently unemployed. We've heard Republicans debate a credit for Americans who are going back to work, but those are the very same Americans who will be getting a salary again. What about Americans who remain unemployed and actually need the help? The moratorium on evictions expires this week. According to reports, the Republican bill won't do anything for the millions of Americans who can't afford the rent and could get kicked out of their apartments. So after all the hemming and hawing and the delay, which cost America so much, months of delay, it appears the next Republican proposal on COVID won't even come close to meeting the moment. It has become clear over the last few weeks that the reason our Republican colleagues have taken so long to put even this inadequate proposal together is because they're paralyzed by internal divisions among themselves and by division with the president. According to reports in the press, even after all these months, our Republican colleagues spent assessing the conditions of the country, the White House and Senate Republicans are starkly divided about what to do. The Trump administration is fixated on a payroll tax cut, an idea that will not only harm those who rely on Social Security, but will do nothing for the tens of millions of Americans who've lost their jobs during the crisis. Many of my Republican colleagues aren't too keen on that idea, with good reason, and yet it still may be in McConnell's proposal, because he and the other Republicans are afraid to tell President Trump no, even when they know he's wrong. Recent reports also suggest that the administration is trying to block billions of dollars from going to the states in order to improve their testing and contact tracing capabilities. Can you imagine? Republicans are arguing about whether to block funds for testing and tracing, the two most important tools in our arsenal to manage this crisis right now. It's amazing. Americans are hanging their heads in some degree of shame at the president's actions, because every other country, developed country, just about every other one in Europe and East Asia is doing much better than us, because they have leadership, and their leadership provided, above all, testing and tracing. This president refuses to do it, and the Republicans say nothing. They are so afraid of President Trump, even when they know he's wrong, even when millions of lives are at stake, even when the economy is at stake, they just are deathly silent. So, what do they end up doing? Well, the one thing that unites Trump and all the Republicans is pleasing corporate interests. And so, if reports are accurate, the Republicans are doing just that, pleasing corporate interests, not workers and families, small businesses. And that will not get the job done. For 60 days, Senate Democrats have been clear about where we should start the negotiations. The HEROES Act, passed by the House, provides crucial relief for education funding for hospitals and medical workers, for our essential workers on the front lines, and for state and local governments. But right now, Republicans seem to want to play chicken with pandemic relief and string everyone along with a bill and a process we all know is doomed to fail. I urge all of my Republican colleagues to abandon their one-party, one-chamber approach before it's too late, and immediately begin bipartisan, bicameral negotiations on the next round of COVID legislation. Now, the problems, of course, don't end with the Republican Senate. We're living through one of the greatest failures of presidential leadership in our country's history. Did you hear that, Donald Trump? You have created one of the greatest failures of presidential leadership in our country's entire history. And the history books will record it that way. President Trump cannot even model good behavior and consistently encourage Americans to wear a mask. When the White House coronavirus briefings resume. President Trump should not take the podium. Every time President Trump takes the podium at one of these briefings, he's a threat to public health. Even after 140,000 lives were lost to COVID, the president claimed again on Sunday this disease will disappear. It's been over 6 months since the start of the virus, and the Trump administration still lacks a national testing strategy. The administration ordered hospitals to hide their coronavirus data from the CDC. The president is pressuring schools to reopen this fall without the necessary resources or guidance to keep our kids safe. Remember President Trump? You pushed Republican governors to reopen their states too early, and just look at what happened. You're now making the same mistake with schools. COVID surged through the states that reopened too quickly, and many now are being forced to reimpose restrictions. We cannot repeat those mistakes when it comes to our schools and the safety of our kids and our families. So the question looms over this chamber. When will our Republican friends stand up to President Trump and tell him to get his act together? When push comes to shove, when people's health and even lives are at stake, it seems Senate Republicans are always too timid, too afraid to buck the president. Will they stand up and tell him he's wrong to block more funding for testing and tracing? Will they tell him to stop ignoring the science, trying to hide the data, and undermining medical experts like Dr. Fauci? And most of all, most importantly, will our Republican colleagues finally step up to the plate and do what's right, work with us in a bipartisan way to provide desperately needed relief to the American people? I yield the floor.
President.
Senator from Illinois.
Madam President, John Lewis was a great American, but there was a humility in his heart that showed his greatness even more. He gave speeches that stirred a nation, but who among us can forget his trademark speech explaining how, as a young man growing up on the farm, he practiced public speaking to an audience of chickens. He told that story over and over again. And John Lewis used to say, people come up to me in the airport and they say, "Why? I'm going to pass out." John's reply was, "Please don't pass out. I'm not a doctor." And John Lewis was a healer, a balm for troubled souls. I was struck by an article in the Atlanta newspaper that talked about an incident that occurred in January of 2009. A former Ku Klux Klan member, Elwyn Wilson, confessed to being part of the white mob.
All right, guys, I'm going to pause it for a minute. I just wanted to talk about what both parties said pretty much about the stimulus bill. So just to recap, if you didn't catch the beginning of this live stream, pretty much we have the Senate Majority Leader Mitch talking about, yes, we have a new bill they're working on, and this new bill, we want to do another round of direct payments. Who is the direct payments going to that yet? That's yet to be talked about yet. Hopefully we'll hear in the next coming days. But those are pretty much your keynotes of what you wanted to know. And then we just heard from Chuck, and Chuck was talking about him not being happy that they created a bill without any Democratic senators being part of the bill. They did it on their own. So you already know what's going to happen. They're probably going to vote for this bill by the end of, I want to say next week. They'll vote for this bill. The way they're talking right now, who knows? Because they didn't talk about voting for the bill today. Today is Tuesday, maybe tomorrow. But like I said, I will be here tomorrow. So hopefully I can figure out how I can make sure when we do this that when we see these videos, they're clear to you guys, because I know that's kind of nagging that they're not as clear, but we're gonna work on it. And like I said, it's better to hear from them when they're at work, their perspective, what they're bringing to the table, because they will tell you anything outside of work, being interviewed, what they want. This is game time. This is they clocked in right now. This is the time for them to talk about what they want to do. So let's hear if he changed it, but it seems like he's talking about discrimination right now. And so, but we're here for the checks.
Barack Obama. Then the two of them traveled, both Lewis and Murphy,
Yeah, okay.
to
So
Ireland, Northern Ireland.
So yeah, he's talking about something else. But I want to say thank you to everybody who did show up. Kathy, I see you side. What's going on? Anthony, Roland, Black Ham, Big Kingston. I want to thank all you guys for showing up in the chats. And if you're new guys, make sure you don't miss out on tomorrow's live stream because I'm going to be doing this again. All right. Thanks for watching. More on the way from your boy, Ace Talks. And I see you in another one. All right. See you tomorrow. All right. Same time tomorrow. All right. All right. Yo. Senate wants another round of direct payments. You heard it here. Straight off the press. There you go.